Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to talk to you about fabulous rangefinder lenses and where to find them. This obviously is not a rangefinder. This is my Sony A7 and fitted on it is this somewhat huge 135mm Jupiter 11. Fabulous lens, we'll be getting into that and several others that I've got. Let's get into it. Russian lenses, or rather ones from the former Soviet Union, gauntlet. I've been using Russian lenses on various different cameras for many years, in fact since I began photography, because I began photography with a Zenith E, which had a fantastic Helios 44 lens fitted, and I got a respect and a love for Russian lenses from that. And fairly naturally, when I started shooting on rangefinder cameras again, and using rangefinder lenses on mirrorless cameras, I went to Russian lenses as a first port of call. On this lovely old Zorky 3C, we've got a Jupiter 8 50mm, which is amongst the best of the 50mm standard lenses that you'll find. These now are quite, not very pricey, but they're certainly not amongst the cheapest. But they are very sharp and they're quite fast at f2, and they're great. They're the standard lens on the Zorky 4, Zorky 3. Great lens. This aluminium finished one is a particularly handsome one with its focusing tab. Yeah, lovely one. I think this is from about 1957 that the whole camera is. So that's the Jupiter 8. Another very sharp and very good performing lens, although a bit slower, is the Industar 26. This one's got a filter on the front of it at the moment. The Industar 26 was supplied as standard on the Fed 2 as an f2.8, but it's 50mm, 52 or 53mm I think, and a little bit slower f2.8, but critically sharp. I mean really very sharp indeed. A really nice lens, and this is a particularly good example on this camera. It's quite smooth, and it's a pretty little lens actually, and it's very similar to the later one, which was the Industar 61 that was fitted to the Fed 4 and Fed 5, which again very sharp lens. I don't have one of those at the moment. I sold one fairly recently, but they're really nice. That's the standard focal lengths, but I can't do standard focal lengths for Russian lenses without mentioning an absolutely cute little lens which I love, and I have fitted at the moment to my Leica 3B, and this is a little Fed 50mm folding lens, retractable lens, folding lens, collapsible lens, however you like to put it. You just give a little tweak and the thing folds down like that, and it's absolutely tiny on the camera body. Mistakenly, some people think that these are copies of the Leica Elmar. As far as I'm aware, they're a Tessar design, so slightly different. They're certainly very sharp, but a little bit slower at 3.5, and you have to beware using these on some mirrorless cameras, because if you collapse them you will ding up your sensor and that will cost you a lot of money. But they're a nice little lens. They're a little bit, the early ones are uncoated, so they're a little bit prone to flare. I have a good answer to this, because with another lens recently I bought this wonderful Carl Zeiss, what am I talking about? and lids. Variable lens hood, which clips onto there and screws on like that, and it will do beautifully a lens hood job, and also works for the 90mm Elmar, which I will get onto in a while. But the little 3.5 Fed lens is really lovely. I'll give you a bit of a warning on these though. There are a lot of them on eBay at the moment, masquerading, and in fact made to exactly look like the f3.5 Leica Elmar. So basically forgeries. All these seem to be coming from the former Soviet Union, and that's severely naughty, and I certainly wouldn't recommend buying one of those. They're expensive anyway, at about sort of 120 to 150 pounds, which is way over the top for a little lens like this. I mean, it's a nice lens, but it's not wonderfully built, and if you can see, it's got an exposed focusing helicoid on it, which picks up sort of dirt and things over the years, and it's adequate, but it's not fantastic. And I would say that for most Russian lenses. They're adequate, they're sharp, but their construction is only adequate. Equally, the 135 that I showed you, f4, very pathetic, 2.5 meter minimum focusing distance. Lovely lens, beautiful colour transmission, sharp when it's stopped down a little bit. Fabulous. Bit of a monster. And these don't focus very well at all, very accurately, on Leicas or Canon rangefinders. There's a bit of a problem because the standard's slightly different, but on a Russian rangefinder or on a mirrorless, these are really quite nice. Not quite a portrait lens because you can't really quite get close enough, but a nice scenic lens, and they do make some really nice images. I then go on to this little beast, which I've recently picked up. This is a Jupiter 12 35mm wide angle. Now, wide angle lenses from Russian makers are a little bit thin on the ground and quite difficult to find. This one you see a little bit more of. There's the Orion 15, which is the 28mm, and that's about rare as rocking horse droppings. This one you see a bit more, but I did have to get this one from the former Soviet Union. I couldn't find a good example of this one in this country. And as with most things ordered from the former Soviet Union, it took a very long time to arrive. I mean, it took about 6 weeks. But it is in very good condition. It's the same age as me, actually. And I think it's probably in better condition than me. But it's a very lovely little lens. But it has one Achilles heel, and that is the severely protruding rear element. This means that you can quite badly damage some cameras that are have light baffles inside, like the Canon P rangefinder. And of course you can ding your sensor if you're using this on a mirrorless. I've used this successfully now, tried it out. I've only recently got it. And with lockdown you can't try out many things at the moment. But I've tried this out on the Sony, and it misses the sensor really quite by a long way. But it's a smooth little lens, and it fits well, for example, on the Leica, but you will of course need an accessory viewfinder. Now let's just take that off, and pop that on there. Getting these lenses started is always an interesting thing. And there we have the little 35mm lens on a Barnack Leica. For that you will of course need an auxiliary viewfinder, so because of course this one doesn't have frame lines, and the Russian rangefinders don't have frame lines either. Obviously great if you're using this lens on a DSLR, a mirrorless camera. because, not a DSLR, because that will foul the mirror. Obviously you'll see what you're taking, but with that's an accessory viewfinder, which we can set to 35mm. The only problem with this KMZ one is that it does bang you in the eye when you're trying to focus, but it's a lot cheaper than the Leica version. So that's a little 35mm I have. In general, the Russian lenses, as I've said, they are optically well made. They are variable in their quality control and a little bit quirky. Some of them are a bit slow. The 28mm I believe is f6.3, which is pathetically slow really, but the 35mm here is f2.8, and I thoroughly recommend that. But remember, you're probably going to have to get one of these from the former Soviet Union if you want to get one, and they're not easy to come by in this country. You'll be looking for around, I paid about £60 for this 135mm Jupiter 11. I paid £90, actually including delivery, for this 35mm. Both of the other 50s came with cameras, so I can't really price those out, but you shouldn't pay more than about £40 for a 50mm standard lens, Russian one. Russian lenses, rangefinder lenses, great, but remember, if you're using a Barnack Leica or an M Leica with an adapter, they won't always focus properly, particularly in the longer focal lengths over 50mm. Quick apology for the fact that the focus seems all over the place on my Panasonic Lumix today. I made a big long section back there and I don't really want to go and re-record it all. It seems to be in focus in the most critical parts, but I've changed some of the settings and I hope it'll be fine for the rest of this. Panasonic, gotta love them, eh? On to this will be a little bit of a short section because I actually only own one Japanese rangefinder lens at the moment, but my goodness, is it a beauty. It's the f1.8 Canon Leica thread mount, and it is to die for. It's also rather heavy, but it's got a beautiful chrome brass barrel. Everything about it is absolutely slick. The aperture ring is silky smooth. It's got an infinity lock, and then the focus is just silk. It's just totally beautiful, and the quality of the lens is stunning. I've only got a couple of images from it so far. I'll pop one up in a second, but it is truly gobsmacking. It's quite weighty. It makes the old Barnack Leica droop at the front a bit. When you put it down, it kind of flops forward. But it's a lovely lens. It's not, however, a cheap lens, and you'll almost certainly not get it in this country. I got one of mine from Japan, and it was £144 plus FedEx delivery and taxes and duties, and so it would have come to about £200 in general. It's quite a lot for a 50mm standard lens. Not a lot compared to a Leica one, and this has to be up with Leica quality easily, but it had to come from Japan, and so there's an element of risk when you buy unseen from halfway across the globe. But truly beautiful lens, and I've actually, a confession here is this is going to make me want a Canon rangefinder to have it on as well. And an even bigger confession is I've dropped a few quid on one which should be arriving fairly soon. But yeah, stunning lens, pitch to follow. Last but not least, the little 90mm f4 Leica Elmar. This, of course, is a proper bona fide Leica lens, and I didn't fly a flag at the beginning of it because this is a 1939 lens, and the flag wouldn't have been very appropriate. Oh, that's the noise of one of the cats telling me I'm extremely bad for not paying her any attention. Anyway, we'll carry on with the Elmar. This is the uncoated version, and I picked this up for under £100 in this country. These are not going to be as popular as the Bayonet M mount and the later coated ones, but I think it's quite a beautiful lens. It has a brassed look to it, which is really quite gorgeous, and it is, being uncoated, quite prone to flare, and this is why I have this hood, which is, I believe, I don't even know if you're supposed to say these things phonetically, but it's a ficus, which is a variable hood that goes from 50 to 135mm. It's a lovely little thing, but it prevents, or largely prevents, flare and loss of contrast, which this lens will suffer from, and I've done a few little tests, and yes, it definitely will. But this is a truly beautiful lens. The bokeh is stunning. The out of focus highlights turn into little floaty balls of gorgeousness, and just, it's a lovely, lovely lens, and it's not super expensive, and it's a real Leica lens. And I have to say, it looks absolutely wonderful on this 1938 Bayonet Leica. So you've got the whole combination, being cost even £300, but it's a lovely lens to shoot, and I'll pop up some results in a second. In fact, right now. So, you can find Japanese lenses mostly in Japan, and then there's the import duty that will go with that, and difficulty of getting things over. It's sight unseen is always difficult, and I've heard some horror stories of some things that have come in that have been substandard, but if you get it through eBay, then there is a policy of being able to return it and get your money back. Russia, again, long wait, but there's some good gear there, but don't pay over the odds. I've seen particularly the Orion 15 wide angle, 28mm wide angle, advertised for close on £200, and it's simply not worth that. It really isn't. So it's really, it's a curate's egg thing. It's good in parts trying to get rangefinder lenses. You can find gems, but you have to hunt. 50mm standards are easy to get if you like the Russian ones. They can be picked up for dead cheap. Other more difficult lenses, portrait lenses particularly, that will be the Jupiter 9 Russian lens, the Serenar 100mm Canon lens. They're quite difficult to get hold of and quite expensive. In fact, the Leica Elmar seems to be, the 90mm Elmar seems to be the easier one of the bunch. Admittedly, it's slower at f4, but it's just a really nice lens. I can't honestly say how nice this lens is and how nice it is to use. And it's even nice to use on a mirrorless, although it looks a bit strange on a mirrorless, as you can see from photographs. But I certainly wouldn't let that deter me, and I haven't. So, that's it for another episode. If you've got any questions or any points about rangefinder lenses or lenses in general or analog photography, please say hi in the comments section. I don't bite, well, mostly. And it'd be great to hear from you. And if you've enjoyed this, please hit the like button. And if you really enjoyed it and you want to see more, I shall be doing more getting out and videoing me actually doing some photography as soon as we're out of lockdown. So that's something to look forward to. Anyway, for now, I shall say, look after yourselves. Bye.